Hello, everyone, and welcome to this training session, another one for OneDrive for Business. This is called Beyond the Basics. My name is Scott Kinsella. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and Microsoft Office Specialist Master. A little bit more about myself before we get to started. Again, I don't know if you've watched any of my videos before or not, but in case this is your first time, let's do those quick greetings. Again, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I have been one of those for over 11 years now. I really need to update my slide. And I specialize in all of the end user and office products. That's what I've made my living doing, is teaching these products to just about anybody that's willing to listen and learn. Overall, though, I've actually been teaching for well over 23 years. I've been working with Microsoft Office for a very, very long time. So I'm knowledgeable on all the products. Currently, I work for a company called Planet Technologies. We're a Microsoft partner based up in Germantown, Maryland. And most of the then client work that I do is with federal and government clients. So a few things before we get this session started. For those of you who are attending online right now live, for those of you watching this on YouTube, this stuff doesn't matter to you, but for those of you attending right now, as always, please keep your audio muted during the class. That way we avoid background and weird noises. If you got a question though, please ask it, and you can type it in the Zoom group chat window, and I've got that open over here on my other monitor. If you want to hold on to your questions until the end, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. And for those of you attending online right now, yes, this will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube so you can share it with your friends. If you're already watching this on YouTube, well, surprise, or you already knew that part, right? Okay, so what we want to do in this class is take the things from introduction and in some cases review and dive deeper, and in other cases we want to introduce some brand new concepts overall with OneDrive for Business. Now, unlike some of my other PowerPoints that I have in these courses that I post, this one's just going to be just the main topics. I have not actually created a full-blown PowerPoint for all of these things yet. So you'll just have to trust me and follow along and watch the examples, but I'll try to make sure I keep moving the slides along, especially for those of you that are watching online, so you know, or watching on YouTube to find out where things are. But here's what we want to cover. In taking our knowledge further with OneDrive for Business, what we want to do is go over a bit more with the OneDrive Windows Sync client. We want to look at in a bit more detail what that can do. We want to then explore more about the web portal. Again, these are concepts that we introduced in the introduction class, but now we want to take those a little bit further with what each of those interfaces can do. So we want to look more at the web portal and some of the functionality that's there. Within that web portal, we want to look at more about recent file activity, or just recent activity in general, is how we can use that to see what's been going on in your OneDrive. The next two topics also are kind of review and more in depth from the intro, and that is taking a look at how file sharing works in OneDrive and what are the different options there and things that we can do. We'll talk about that a lot more here, as well as the whole bit about managing file access. Again, we talked about that in intro, but we want to take that further here in this class. A new concept that we're going to talk about in this session is what's called version history. Now, if you're familiar with SharePoint at all, you might be familiar with versions, and that actually happens to be a feature that is also found in OneDrive for Business. Lastly, then we'll talk about the recycle bin. We need to talk about that a little bit, and our notification settings for OneDrive. There are some things that OneDrive is tied to as far as email, and you can get notifications on certain things, so we want to explore that sort of stuff. So with that being said, let's talk about our first major topic area. And within each of these topic areas, we have smaller topics we want to talk about. And first off, we want to talk about the OneDrive for Windows Sync client. Now, as we mentioned in the intro class, and as a little bit of a review here, the role of the Windows Sync client is for that program. It's a program that runs in the background in Windows, okay? It's just like any other program that you would run. It's just that it runs as a background service. And what that means is that you're not really going to see it on your taskbar over here or down at the bottom. I keep mine over on the left, but rather it's going to be something that you see in the system tray, which if you look at my system tray down here in the bottom left-hand corner, corner, you can see that OneDrive is running. And you can see there's actually down here twice because I run both the OneDrive personal and I run OneDrive for business. So there's two instances of it running down there. And the reason or the goal, the purpose of that service is to copy locally everything that is out on the cloud-based storage of my OneDrive. Now that gets even more complicated in Windows 10, and I'm not going to get too much in today with files on demand and all that business. Let's just assume for ease of understanding purposes today that everything in the cloud, it makes an exact copy of it, the full file on the Windows side. Yes, there are files on demand features and blah, blah, blah to save space, but I think most of us have the space to keep everything local. But anyways, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But anyways, the role of that sync service is to make sure that no matter where you do stuff, whether you edit and work on files on the Windows side or you edit and work on files in the cloud, they're always in sync, that you got the same thing on both ends. And what that also enables is by doing that, by having that service running, that allows us access to our files even if we're not online right now. So if you're on a plane or on the beach or just maybe in your backyard working on stuff and your Wi-Fi doesn't reach out there, well, no problem. All of your OneDrive files are still going to be available locally. You can sit there, work on them, and then when you bring your laptop or computer or tablet or whatever you're using, when you bring it back within range of Wi-Fi or the internet, that sync client will detect your connection and it will make sure that everything is back in sync. So great thing for that. Now, again, where do you find that sync client? Well, in Windows, it'll be down in your Windows tray. If your taskbar is down at the bottom, you'll find it over on the right-hand side. For me, since I've got my taskbar over on the left, it's down here in the bottom left-hand corner. So I can just hover over the blue cloud icon there and it tells me my OneDrive is up to date. And I can even single click that to get more information, and we'll talk more about some of this stuff that's there. So I can see any files that I have touched or worked with recently in my OneDrive. A few other things that I can do down here is that I can click on Open Folder, and that is going to open up Windows Explorer with to the local copy of everything that's on my OneDrive. So you can see here, these are all of the local copies of everything that I've got out there. Okay, now you can also from that client view everything online. Now I've already got that open, but if I pop over here to my web browser, you can see that if I clicked on the view online, it would then launch the web portal of OneDrive. And again, if you look at these, they are exactly the same. These are the same 9 folders. These are the same 9 folders here. Just a couple little extra things from the Windows side, not to be worried about. It's just for synchronization purposes. But basically, this from Windows and this from the web are exactly the same. They are kept in sync and everything is all the same and nice. Now, what you'll notice on the Windows side that's important to note are what we call these icon overlays. Looking at OneDrive here, you can see that there are little green check marks down at the bottom of every file or folder. And what that tells me is that that file is currently in sync, that everything is up to date and everything is good. You know, that's the big thumbs up that everything is good there. There are other possible things that you might see there. When a file is synchronizing, you'll actually see a couple little arrows, little blue arrows that'll chase each other. It happens very quickly unless it's a huge file, so you might not even ever spot it, but yes, you'll actually see that. And if there's ever actually a problem with trying to sync a file, you'll actually see a red circle. It'll be a red filled in circle with a white X on it, and that's just going to tell you that there's some sort of problem, and you can come back then down to the sync client here to find out what the issue is. And where you would find that is right here under the More menu. This leads us into the next part of what we want to talk about, is that there is, this is a program just like anything else that runs on Windows. So there's other stuff here that we can look at. Now there's another way here to open your OneDrive folder. So this command here is the same as that one there. This view online is literally the same as the one that's down there. And then if there was troubleshooting necessary, that would appear here. Since there's no troubleshooting necessary right now, that's not showing up on the menu. So let's talk about some of the other things that are here in this. And let me double check my slide before I go too far. Sometimes I forget topics. So the overlay icons, open recent, open local, open the portal. Okay, great. So now we're at the last topics here. Just I wanted to make sure. Sometimes I get ahead of myself or something along those lines. So let's come back here to the sync client. And let's take a look at the first thing that's new here, and that is the settings. So let's go to the settings of the sync client. So this is a tab dialog box like many things that you'll see in Windows. And generally, though, when you first come up with it, though, it has this bit here about account. And what this is information about is what account, the account information, where is OneDrive syncing to as far as your Office 365 subscription. Okay, so you can see I'm connected to my OneDrive for Business. It gives me some information about how much of the storage that I'm currently using, what locations are currently syncing, and so on and so forth. What's really interesting here, and this is I don't want to say new capability, it's been around for a while, but maybe you didn't know it. But if you're somebody like myself that has multiple OneDrive accounts, you can actually sync all of them now to your computer. This has been around for a few years, but some people aren't aware of it. But yeah, if you are like myself and you actually have multiple OneDrive accounts, you can actually connect and have them all sync up to your computer. Now, where this only gets a little bit uh, unexpected or screwy, or I don't know what to call it, is that you might notice again that I've got two clouds down here, and that's because I'm using OneDrive for Business and OneDrive Personal. The blue cloud here is for the OneDrive for Business accounts. So if I connected any other business accounts, I'm not going to keep getting additional clouds down here. That's kind of where I was headed with this. You're only ever going to at the maximum see two clouds down there. One for OneDrive for Business and one for OneDrive Personal. It gets complicated and weird. They're all still the same thing, but there are just different ways of communicating, blah, 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 blah. But anyways, so if I had multiple OneDrive for Business accounts listed here or connected, they would all be here. And I could just add that account by clicking add an account. It's going to go through the whole Office 365 configuration process, which I don't actually want to do right now. Set up OneDrive, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's got some old cached credentials from a company I did stuff for a while back. But anyways, I could add additional accounts here to have those available. All right. All right, let's back up to the settings tab here and talk about some other settings of the Windows Sync client. Personally, I like all the defaults, but let's talk about what's here. So there's some general stuff here, start OneDrive automatically when I sign into Windows. I think that's a good idea if you really want this client to do what it needs to do. Automatic pausing if you're on a metered network. I don't know if anybody's on metered networks anymore, but certainly that's there. That's just to prevent you from wasting all of your download stuff. There are some settings here about notifications, which we have other ones for the web version, but here we've got some things on the Windows side to look at. These again are pretty all straightforward. You can read those. Now, the last option here is one that I've talked about a little, I mentioned a little bit earlier, and that's what's called Files on Demand. So what this does is that, yes, in the previous iterations of OneDrive, it kept copies of everything that was on the cloud on your computer. There's possibly a couple of issues with that. First off, if you happen to have a device that doesn't have a lot of space. So like, for instance, one example of that is I've got a Windows Go tablet here. It's got a limited amount of space on it. I think the hard drive on here is only like 64 gigabytes. I know, only 64, but there's not a ton of space. And it might be, if I've got, a terabyte, or I've got a large amount of information in my OneDrive, I might not want all of that to be copied to this device. That would run out the space. So what the files on demand can do is that if you do enable that feature, then what happens is that instead of having all of the actual files on your computer, what is going to be there are what are called placeholders. So it's going to look like all the files are there, but until you then click on one and try to use it or open it, then at that point, OneDrive will go out to the cloud, fetch it, and bring it down, and have it on your computer. So it only fetches things as you need them. Okay, um, that can be handy if you're online. Okay, the trick to this is though is that yes, if you are at a premium for space and you are using files on demand, then what you have to remember is that if you've got files that you've not ever touched or haven't touched in quite a while, and then you go offline, you may not have access to them because OneDrive's not going to be able to get to them. Okay, so that's the flip side of that. You can see here that I've got it disabled because my computer here has got plenty of space on it, and I actually don't have that much on my OneDrive for Business, so I'm not worried about, oh goodness, excuse me. I'm not worried about it taking up a lot of space on my computer. If you do save the space, then yes, there's going to be one other, you're going to see there's a new column here in Windows, and it will show you the difference between ones that are available online and the ones that are not. Okay, you can then, when you are using, if you are using files on demand, if you want something to be available locally, you can just right click on it and say make available local. And I think I even see it, no, it's going to disappear because I'm not running it, but there's going to be a command in this section here that it would now say make this file available locally. Or what you can do is turn files on demand on, leave it on, and then maybe just certain folders you actually always want on there. The other thing about this is that it really only works on Windows 10, if I remember right, and I should check, and you should be upgraded anyways, but Windows 7 doesn't do files on demand. It does require, that is a feature that does require Windows 10 to work. Okay, so that is yet another kind of cool feature that we have available for us via the Windows Sync client. Again, if you've got plenty of space on your home computer, I wouldn't, or whatever computer you're working on, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Only in case of devices where maybe you don't have as much space on there, and you've got a very large OneDrive and you don't want to eat up all the valuable space that you've got, is when you'd want to use that files on demand capability. All right, let's go back into those settings. So there is our, so that's everything here. We talked about account. There are other things in here about backup. You can back up other folders in Windows, not just OneDrive, but it is only things that are in certain places. So if I go to this manage backup, you can synchronize anything that are kind of in the standard Windows folders like documents and pictures and other things. Unfortunately, OneDrive is not yet at the point where you could basically designate any folder on your Windows computer to be able to sync it to OneDrive. That would be really cool. Oh my God, I'd love that. But basically, anything that's in your OneDrive and anything that's in the actual established Windows, what we call libraries, which are documents, pictures, media. There's a couple of different ones. Oh, they're right here. Pictures, documents, music, videos, those can all be synced and backed up by way of OneDrive. And especially, again, if you've got a business account or a paid personal account, you got a terabyte of space out there, so you're good. There's some other stuff here about networks. So if you want to limit, again, maybe you're on a very slow internet connection and you want to limit how much speed OneDrive uses in the background, you can change the network settings. You can change some settings about OneDrive and how it works in conjunction with Microsoft Office here. Again, I think the defaults are all going to work quite well. Use Office applications to sync Office files that I have open. Yeah, that's for our file collaboration capabilities. Here's things about sync conflicts, and then just here is what version of the client you're currently using, and so on and so forth. So lots of things that are buried in that Windows client. That may be a little bit more technical than you need, and that's okay. I think a lot of the basic settings are good. Personally, I'm not a fan of the files on demand. Mostly, I want to have stuff available on my computer or my devices. So I don't really use it, but I could totally understand somebody needing that feature. Okay. All right. So I think that's all we want to say about the Windows Sync client. There actually is a lot of stuff buried in there, and I'd highly recommend using that client in many of the ways that we've talked about here. All right, we need to move on, and let's talk more now about the web portal. So we talked in the intro class a lot about this stuff over in here and all the different buttons that we've got on the ribbon and so on and so forth, but I didn't really talk much about what's over here in the navigation pane, which is actually kind of odd usually for an intro class, but working with your files is more important. So what I've got over here now is the navigation pane. OneDrive has multiple views of the stuff that's available to it. And by default, you have this My Files that's located right here. That's the most obvious. But there are other views that are available over here. Let's work our way down. So there is a recent list here, and this breaks down by day, and then it goes to weeks and months, files that I've worked on that are located in my OneDrive. So again, if you have lots of files out there, this is just like the recent list that you would get in Word or Excel or PowerPoint. You're literally, I mean, it's the same layout. It's really the same as you see in any of those products. And this is just a way to find stuff you've worked on recently without having to dig for it. I mean, that's the whole point of recent menus, right? So not too much more to say about that. Next is what's called the shared view. And this is absolutely one of my favorite things in OneDrive. Excuse me for one second. Okay. Um, the reason I like this is this. How many times have people shared things with you? And of course, when they share stuff via OneDrive and SharePoint and other things, you get a link sent to you in email. And that's nice until you possibly delete the email and you weren't thinking about it, or you file that email somewhere away in some folder and you forgot that that's where you put it. And now you're like, oh, where is that email that Mary sent me that's got that link in your, whatever. You don't really need to do that. If you share files anywhere in the Office 365 environment, whether it's through OneDrive or SharePoint or whatnot, that's tracked. And OneDrive is one of the places where you can see a list of that stuff. And this not only shows you the files that have been shared with you, but also anything that you have shared with others. If you look here, there's actually two views. The shared with me, so this would be anything that anybody has shared with me. Now, this is my own kind of standalone tenant, so nobody has shared anything with me. But if I had other people at my company or something like that, and they've been sharing files with me, they would all be listed here on this screen. So I wouldn't have to hunt through any other locations to see the stuff that's here. And conversely, if there's anything that I have shared, so yes, it looks like I've shared out set some file sharing here in my account. I was trying a couple of different things. All that is listed here. And what this is really nice for, which goes back to something that we talked in the intro and that we'll also cover a bit more later, is this whole, excuse me, oh my goodness, is this idea in OneDrive that you are the person who runs your OneDrive. You are the person that needs to manage things that you've shared out. And if you're like, well, I don't want to have to go through every file and folder and directory to see, what did I share with whom and whatever. You don't need to do that. You can come here to the shared by me, and this is everything that you've shared. So this is where you can kind of do that cleanup maintenance and go, okay, maybe I don't want to share this anymore. I can select a file and I can manage its access. We'll talk about that. And I can take away the sharing permissions on different files and folders. It's all in one place. All right. Now, there's another option that should appear between shared and recycle bin, and that's called Discover. And that is tied to something called Delve. Unfortunately, though, it only shows up if you're using Internet Explorer. If you use any Chromium-based browser or Firefox, what'll be kind of weird is that you'll see it appear and then it will disappear. And because I've got this open in Microsoft Edge, which is now what we call a Chromium-based browser, that discovered thing disappears. But if I was using, excuse me, if I was using Internet Explorer, actually, let me go ahead and do that real quick. You'll see there's another discover there. Let me copy this link and paste it over here. Let's see if I can get into this real fast. I should have had it open. Here we go. Here's my OneDrive over in Internet Explorer. And there it is. See, there's that discover. I'll click on that here in a second as soon as it stops loading. Oh, it went away. I guess I don't have something else enabled. All right, so you might see it there and it might disappear, but when it does appear like it's supposed to, it's tied to something called Delve. And what Delve is that it's what we call an Office graph application that can show you your coworkers and the files that your coworkers are working on that you have access to, and so on and so forth. And the Discover is just another way to kind of view that information here. You know what? I'm going to guess that it keeps disappearing because it has no information. Because I'm just a standalone client here. So I'm going to guess that's why it keeps disappearing. I don't need to see that right now. Okay, all right. Next, we've got the recycle bin, and we will talk more about the recycle bin later. So that's going to come up a little bit later on. We'll go into more details about that. But if you've deleted anything on the website of OneDrive, you'll find it here in the recycle bin. We'll talk more about that later. Now, the other thing that we have available to us in OneDrive, and this will actually lead into yet a whole other class that I might even have posted on YouTube already at this point, is OneDrive and SharePoint are very, very similar in a lot of ways, but they're also different. And in one way that they're very similar is that their whole business of file management and storage is literally and practically the same deal. And what that then enables us to do through OneDrive is that you can view and work with any SharePoint site that you have access to. You can work with the files right through OneDrive. That is really, really cool. So you can see here are all these shared, these are all libraries that are located out on SharePoint. I can get to any of those SharePoint libraries right from OneDrive. So I don't even have to launch another browser window and navigate out to SharePoint and so on and so forth. I can do all of that right here. There's a lot more that goes into that. That is a separate class. I literally have a whole class about how SharePoint and OneDrive do all this kind of fun stuff together. So hopefully by the point, hey, maybe when you're watching this, that'll already be out there. For those of you online, I haven't scheduled it yet, but I'll do it at some point. But that is one of the kind of cool capabilities that we do have here with OneDrive, is that it can literally connect to SharePoint and save you having to open up extra web browsers and do all that sort of cool stuff. Okay. So in our navigation pane, we have all these different views. I just, again, want to say that Discover view might not be available depending on whether your company has enabled the Office graph and is using Delve, and it also depends on your browser, blah, blah, blah. But basically, we've got just all these different views here. Honestly, yes, I pretty much stick to the My Files. I love the shared view here, and I also love the ability to get to other libraries on SharePoint right through OneDrive. Okay, so let's move on to our next major topic here in this session, and that is viewing recent activity on not only our files, but pretty much anything here in OneDrive. So when you're in OneDrive, because it is because the technology that it uses is basically SharePoint. Anything that SharePoint does, OneDrive can kind of also do. And what that means is that there is just some basic information about files that's tracked, like it's also tracked in SharePoint. And I hate using the word tracked because it sounds like you're being watched. But the reality is, in SharePoint, one of the basic features of SharePoint is that we know who created a file and when did they do it, who last edited a file and when did they do it, Was the file renamed, and when did they do it? And other things like moving and so on and so forth. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes over here. Um, all of that stuff is tracked at a basic level in SharePoint. So it stands to reason that we can see all of that same information also over in OneDrive. The trick is, how do we see it? Well, it's not that too difficult, but basically I'm just gonna go in here. Oops, that's not the folder I wanted. Let's go over to here. And there's a bunch of sample files in this folder here. So let's start off at the file level. But basically, I can select any file, and then I'm going to open up the details pane. And part of the many things that the details pane shows, first off, it shows me a thumbnail preview of the file. Then we've got the business about who's got access to the file, which we'll talk more about that again later, but we also already talked about it in the intro class. And then below that is the recent activity. And this lists everything that's happened with that file. There are 4 types of activity that are tracked. There is the who created, so that's going to be with a plus sign. Any editing that happened, that's going to use the little pencil symbol. If there was a rename, that's going to use the rename symbol, which looks like this one right here. And then there is if there was any move or copy of the file, and that's going to use these, I'm sorry, a move, it's not going to track copies. That'll use this icon here. So those same icons that we see in the ribbon will also appear down here to let you know that that activity has happened. It will say who did it and when. Now you might be like, well, wait a minute, isn't this my OneDrive? Isn't that all I should see? Well, yeah, that's true. On most of this, it's going to be you did this and you did that. But remember also, there's the whole business of sharing. And that if I do share out a file, other people may be doing things to that, and I can see all of that information here. So that is the recent activity. Now, you can't do anything with the information that's here. It's just basically there for you to look at. You really can't generate a report or anything else along those lines, but at least you can see what's going on. Let me pick yet another file here. We'll work with this one a bit more later. Here's a version history file. You can see, yeah, there's a little bit of activity here. You can see when I created it. You can see I gave it a different name, and you can see I did some editing on that file. So all of that stuff is listed right here. And again, if this was a file that I have shared out with other folks, all of that information would appear there. So this is a way to see that. Now we can also see that information about any folder. So if I jump back up to the training folder here and if I select the sample files folder, this is now going to tell me any activity on any file all the way through that folder. So if I jump back up, you can see, look, here is all of the stuff that's happened. So you can see all the different icons: created, edited, renamed. I don't think I have any moves on here though. No, there's no moves, but there is all of that stuff. And even you can also see, if you're really curious, that information about your entire OneDrive account. So if nothing is selected and I open up the details pane, okay, let me go back up to the top here at files, and then I select the information pane. Well, then everything is reported here. Now I can see all of the activity anywhere in my account. That's been going on, stuff that's been happening here. So there you go. Lots of detail and information about this. So it's one way to remind you of stuff. The other nifty thing is that, yes, all of these things are hyperlinks. So like the recent view over on the panel here, this is yet another way to get to those things. Okay, again, you can't change any of the information that's over there. But if I'm like, oh yeah, let me look at that PDF again, or let me open up this particular document or whatever again, you can access it from there. So we can both look at the activity and we can launch into that file if we've or whatever if we want to. Okay. All right. So that is all we can basically do there on the recent activity. It's not really a thing we can do much to or change. Rather, it's there for our information, and we can look at it for a file, we can look at it for a folder, or we can look at it for anything that's kind of happening in our OneDrive. All right, let's talk about file sharing. Maybe I should move this earlier. I like the order that it's in. All right, so let's talk about sharing. So in the intro class, we did not a third, we did kind of a mid-level look at sharing in OneDrive because it's an important topic. But here now I want to take some time and really dive into it more. So let me just start off with this document here. I want to share it. By the way, you can only share one file at a time. Question: in the detail pane, if you go too far back, would it open the old version? Hold that thought. We'll talk about versioning here in just a few moments. No, but we'll get to that. All right. So I want to share this document, okay? If you need to share multiple documents, you cannot select a bunch of them and share, because if you notice, the share command disappears. You can only share one at a time. Now, if I did want to share the entire folder, I can do that if I go back up a level and I see here is the sample files folder. Excuse me, I can click that and the share is there, and that's actually going to make the entire folder available. What then becomes a little tricky is kind of doing in between. It's like, well, maybe I've got 5 files in here that I want to share. Your options are share them one at a time, or move all of those files to a particular folder and then share that folder. Maybe create a subfolder here or another folder anywhere else in your OneDrive. Use the move or copy commands depending on your needs, and then share out that folder. But unfortunately, there's just no way to kind of, well, I just want to do these 6 files. All right, so let me pick one of these cookbook documents and let's bring up the share. Now I'm doing this through the web portal. The process is basically the same on the Windows side through the Office apps. I don't have time to go through every single one of them. Look back at the intro class for how to get to this same menu in other places. So the first thing we want to talk about is right here, is that there's actually a bunch of stuff hiding under this part here where it says anyone with the link can edit. I wish Microsoft would make it more obvious that there's a lot of things hiding under there, because it's really easy to not, there's an arrow pointing to the side, but that's really easy to miss. So let's click that and look at the fact that there's all kinds of stuff buried here. So let's talk. First off, you need to determine who you want to share this file with. Now, especially in the case of OneDrive for Business, your company or government institution or whoever you work for may have policies in place that say you can only share with internal and you can't do external. There's a bunch of stuff that goes with that. So some of the stuff that you see here may not be available to you because of your company policies. Basically, if I want anybody, both internal and external, to be able to use this file or to get to this file, that's the anyone with the link. Okay, because basically then a kind of, for lack of a better way to say it, a generic web link is created, and then basically anybody you give that link to is going to be able to work with it, to get to the file. Okay, to further limit that, so a lot of companies actually do disable that, or especially government disable that, because they don't want outside people being able to collaborate on being able to get internally to files. So you might see that that is not available. Now, other options, now this is weird. This says people in Scott Kinsella. That's not me personally. That just happens to be the name of my Office 365 install or my subscription. So let's pretend that is some other fictitious company. Let's say it's NCOM, okay? If my company was called NCOM, this would say people in NCOM with the link. What that would mean is that it would create a link that anybody at my company could use. So it's like the top one, but it's unlike it, because this top one, anyone with the link, works for internal and external. People in my company with the link is all internal users only. So if I set this one, that would mean only people here. Now notice when I select different options here, different things become available down below, and we'll talk about that. Okay, let me go back to anyone with the link. This third one here, people with existing access, is kind of weird. What that is doing is that this is basically a way to resend the link to people that you've already granted the access to. So you're not actually granting new access, you're just refreshing or reminding people of the link. So to me, this is weird that this is even here. It's just, I don't know, it's always been kind of strange to me because it's not, this option is you're not giving anybody new access, you're just kind of reminding them that they've already got it. I'm still struggling to understand why this is an option here because there's other ways to find that. Lastly, there is the specific people. This is, again, only for internal usage. If you are inside your company, you could grant to specific people the ability to get to the file. You can't do that with external users. That's just not possible because there's just no way to authenticate. If I send this to my mother, she's, doesn't work for me or anything. If I sent a link to my mom, there's just no way for Office 365 to authenticate that it's really her outside of creating subscriptions, and it just gets really weird and technical. So this specific people only works for people at your company. All right. And if I chose that and then did the apply, I would actually have to select actual names. Okay. So we'll do both examples here just so that we're aware of how all this works. So let me go back to anyone with the link, because I think for a lot of you, this is the one that you're going to want. Now, again, where you work may limit this, okay? But let's go through the options now that we have available. What's common to all of these is this whole business of allow editing, okay? By default, if you're providing somebody access to a file, usually you're doing it so that they can work on it as well and collaborate with you. But maybe you just want them to be able to look at it. Maybe I don't want you to edit it, I just want you to only look at the file. So in that case, I could uncheck that and say, you can't edit it, but you can look at it. Now, if I do uncheck that box, a new option becomes available down at the bottom called block download. And what that can do is that, okay, if right now, I can allow you to look at it, but often if you're already allowed to look at something, you could also possibly download it. If you are even more concerned about your security and you don't want to allow that to happen, okay, if I click over that slider and now enable block download, literally somebody could access the file, they can look at it, but they're not going to be able to download it at all. They're not going to be able to make a copy of it. All commands are going to be unavailable. They're just going to be able to view it in the web browser. That could be good for proposals and things that you don't want to, you just want somebody to review it. You don't want it to get in the wrong hands, yada, yada, yada. All right, so let me uncheck block download. And let me go back to allow editing. So those two options work together. Notice if I allow editing, the block download is not available. Why? Well, if somebody can edit something, they can get in it and they can copy it. So it's kind of pointless. You can set an expiration date. So if you don't want to leave your file, your share open forever, and you want it to say okay by a specific date, this is no longer available, you can set an expiration date. So that would be right here. You can also additionally, for especially, again, this would apply to external shares, you can set a password, and because I could already see the bells going off. Some of you are like, wait a minute, if anybody with the link can get into the file, does that mean I give it to anyone? And yeah, that's true. Yes, anybody with the link can could access the file. That's why a lot of companies turn this off, okay? But what you could do for an additional layer of security is you can set an individual password for that file. So if I am allowed to share stuff externally, companies can allow that, but they could also set it and enforce it so that you'd have to set a password on it so that there's additional security there. I've not turned that on here. That has to be turned on at your, what we would call the tenant level. So your administrators and stuff would have to turn that and force that feature for external shares. Now you'll notice it says you'll need to provide the password to others. Obviously that's not going to come through on the share. I believe you'll have to do a separate email saying, again, for security reasons, here's the access, here's the link to the file, and then Here's the password to get into it. Please don't share that password. Okay, so I could theoretically set a password there. All right, so that would be the anyone with the link. Then, if I click apply here, I would fill out the rest of this and send it off. Okay, I could put in that external email and so on and so forth. Now, let's talk about if I'm just dealing with people at my company. Okay, because this is basically, really, it's going to be this one or this one. Remember, the first two options here are basically the same. It's just that anyone with the link is both external and internal. People in company with the link, that's in all your internal users. So let's go to specific people. On either of the people in your company or specific people, a lot of the extra options down there go away because they're kind of pointless. So now we've just got the allow editing and the whether we allow or whether we want to block download or whatever else. Notice that the setting expiration, or the other ones, the expiration date and set password are just not there anymore, okay? I do believe it's possible through some tweaking settings in the background in companies to set the expiration date. Password is not needed because you already have to authenticate in the first place to get into Office 365. Let me choose specific people here and then click apply. Now, in this case, then, it's got to be people in my company, and I've just got a bunch of bogus student accounts. So let me just give some of these students access to these files. You have to list people one by one when you want to give them access. There is no way here to give a whole list of people access to a file. That is by design. In Teams and in SharePoint and other places, it's possible to give a lot of people access to a file very easily. In OneDrive, it's not, and that's on purpose because remember, as we talked about in the intro class, this is supposed to be peer-to-peer sharing. This is not supposed to be me giving access to 50 people in my department. That's really not how you're supposed to do OneDrive. So intentionally, you can't put a list of people here, okay? I've had that question come up many times where people are like, well, why can't I? And they're like, because you're not supposed to. I know that can be frustrating to do over and over again if it's several files that you're always giving 12 people access to, but already my question is if you're giving the same 12 or 11 or whatever people access to files over and over, you should be using SharePoint already. That's, to me, that's already a red flag that you're using OneDrive incorrectly. All right, then I would write any sort of message that you want to write to those people. If you need to say something like, hey, please take a look at this and edit, blah, blah, blah. You can write any of that stuff there. I think there's a character limit of like 500. When you start to get close, it'll start to tell you how close you're getting to the limit. If you actually want to jump over to actual Outlook, you can jump over to it from here if you want to use all the actual Outlook tools for sending messages and so on and so forth. I find that's overkill. So, hey, please work on this. I'm just going to write a short message there, and I'm just going to go ahead and send. So there, the link has been sent. Those students in my tenant get something in their Outlook email. They can click on that. They can work with the files. And then now if you look here in OneDrive, the permissions on the file are going to change. Let me, or I should say it's going to say shared instead of private. Let me refresh my window. And I should now be able to see that, yes, that cookbook document is now a shared document. And to go back to what we talked about earlier with the shared view, if I jump into the shared view, I should see that file in the list. Let me go to the shared by me list. And now that I'll see there's that document that is now currently shared. So I can see that in the shared view. Okay. All right. Now, let's dive deeper. So let me go back to my slide here. So we've set a file, we changed our link settings, we changed other sharing settings, and I showed you can share a folder. You cannot share your entire OneDrive account. That again totally defeats the purpose of OneDrive. I would never, ever, ever recommend that you do that. When it comes to all of this stuff as far as sharing, it's always what we call, especially in government circles, we always say, need to know. So you should never just give blanket access to a large group. It's like, look, only give people access that need it, not to, well, let me just give access to my entire department for this folder. If you're doing that, again, red flag, you should be using SharePoint. This is peer-to-peer. So once we've done all of that file sharing, let's talk about managing that access, okay? There are a lot of other things that we can do. We can look at, let's look at those things. But amongst the things we can do here, we can view that manage access pane, understanding the links versus the direct access, how to manage those different links, how to change permissions, grant additional access, and stop sharing. So we got all kinds of stuff that we can do there. So let me jump back over to my OneDrive. Let me go back into these folders. And actually, let me do one more thing really quick here. And on that cookbook document, just as an example, let me additionally share this with an outside user. So actually, I'm just going to put in my own email address. Okay, if I could actually spell it correctly. All right, and we will send that. Isn't valid. All right, well, let me do this one. All right, let's send to that address there outside the organization. Why was it thinking? Oh, I know. Never mind. Okay. Anyways, link sent. Okay, so now this file has actually been shared with both an internal and external users. Okay, that's what I've done here. And that's where we're going to go to our next thing. So we're going to select this file, and now I want to manage the access to that. So that is found on the details pane. So again, I'm going to select the file, click the information symbol over here, and let's talk about the manage access pane. So it's chewing on it for a second, probably has to update itself. I need a little Jeopardy music here. There we go. All right, this item has been shared with guests. So I can see right here, we talked about the activity pane. We're working our way up, and now we are in the has access. So right now, just looking, I can hover over things and it can tell me that this has been, this file has been shared with both users that are internal and there's some externals. So I don't have to go any further if I just want a quick look at who's it been shared with. But let's actually go into the manage access and see what we got here. So in the manage access pane, you're going to see that it's divided up into two main sections, the links giving access and the direct access. Basically, the stuff up top is for internal and external. Mostly it's going to be used by external users. And the direct access is for our internal users, okay, where I've granted them specific stuff, or specific direct access to the file, right? Direct access to the item. Okay. Now, looking here, I can see that there are two, even within the links giving access, there are two kinds of links that actually can be already generated. And that is the anyone with the link can edit, and the people you specify can edit. Now, this is weird. Why are these people showing up here instead of down below? That's weird. All right, I'll check on that later. All right, well, the management stuff and capabilities here are all basically the same. So the people that I specified that could edit, right now they're being listed here. Why are they not in the direct access section? Strange. Okay, I got to follow up on that. These are supposed to appear down here. Again, I hate when things like happen this. Okay, grumble, grumble, grumble. It all still works the same. All right. In this pane, first off, I can manage the access. I can change things for people. I can remove them. I can add them. So for instance, I can say this, right now it says this link works for student 1 and student 2. I could take away their access by clicking these X's. Now you'll notice that there is a link for the internal people and a link for the external. So it is two different links right now. In any cases, I can do things like copy that link and give it to somebody else. I could go to the more options and set some options on that link that maybe I didn't set earlier. So, here is, I could set an expiration date. You'll notice that I cannot change this from edit to read access. That's because it's all tied into the link itself. So if I kind of need to change, especially for external people, if I need to change the permissions on the link, what you really need to do is delete the old one, create a new one, and set your options differently. All right, let me go back here. Now under the people, I can, now for the internal ones where it's sent a link, yes, I can change it because those work differently. So here where I've got the people I specify, if I go into those settings, look here under the can edit, I can change this to can view so that people can only read or print from there, okay? All right. I can also from here maybe grant additional what we would call the direct access, which I could have done earlier. If I click the plus sign there, I can, let me pick on student 3. Okay, they can edit and I can grant access, and that also should show down there at the bottom. Why is it not showing down there at the bottom? All right, let me refresh here. Let's close that panel. This is giving me a heartache today. All right, let's go back to this. It could be that Microsoft has changed stuff then from the last time I did it, or it's been behaving, whatever. I know I should have a better attitude about this, right? File a complaint with my manager. All right. Oh, there, now it's showing up. Okay. It's behaving. Now it's behaving. You know what? Probably a lot of this has to do with that I'm not a real company, so things are showing up in the wrong sections because whatever. But you get the idea here. It's all just getting in here and you can manage stuff. So, well, it's not showing up the way I want it to. It all still matters. So look here. Here's student 3. I can change their access from can edit to can view, like I could change it up here. I could stop sharing altogether. So no matter what type of access I've given to people and anything that I've set up, if I'm like, nope, I need to turn it all off and I want to do that quickly, I could just click stop sharing here. So I could literally say stop sharing, and boom, if I say that, all of the links are going to be removed. All the access is going to be changed. All right, let me close the panel and reopen it, or let me just refresh my browser here. And that's going to change from shared to private, and now it's all back in my purview. There we go. It's all back to private. So even if somebody clicks those links now, if they, click on something old in their email, it's not going to work. Now, on the flip side, or on the going back to something we've already talked about, in this shared section, it works like it should. So if I have removed people's access, that will not, these files will then no longer show up on their shared with me. So if it was the other person, they may come in here and go, oh, where is whatever file? Well, obviously it's not going to be listed there anymore because we took the sharing away. And as far as the shared by me, again, obviously the file's not going to appear here because it's gone back to private access. So it's not here. So that's how it should work. Again, this is why I love this feature. I get so excited about silly things like that, but I think that's cool. You may disagree with me and you're wrong. No, it's fine. It's all good. So as far as the managing access, links versus direct access, that works better when you're in a real corporate environment. I'm just a standalone tenant here, so it's misbehaving a little bit, but very generally speaking, links are for external users and direct access is for people that are inside your tenant. We can manage those links. You can create and change. Just remember that with links, if you've given edit access, the only way to change that to like just view is to remove, change, you got to delete the link and create a new one. That's easy enough. With the direct access, you can change people's permission levels from edit to view and back. You can add people from that pane, so you don't, basically you can do more sharing from there. And of course, we talked about how to stop sharing a file. Okay, so you can, remember, this is you. Okay, whereas SharePoint is managed by other people and site owners generally, you are the owner, the master, the king, queen, pick your choice there, of things in, of the stuff in your OneDrive. So it's all up to you to manage all that sort of stuff. All right, let's go to now a feature that we didn't talk about at all in the intro class, and that's version history. This is a feature that is found and has been in SharePoint for a long time. And as I've mentioned several times, really the technology that drives OneDrive is SharePoint. I mean, even if you look up here in the address bar, you'll notice it says SharePoint.com. It's a little more complicated than that-ish, but basically, look, this is kind of what we would call SharePoint Lite. And that's, again, why OneDrive works with SharePoint so well. And one of those features that's been available in SharePoint for many, many years, and now we've also got over here in OneDrive, is this whole idea of version history. So what is version history? Well, version history is a way of solving the problem of having multiple copies of the same file because you want to be able to go back, right? So many of us do the following. You have a file, you decide you want to update it or make changes to it, so you create a new copy of that file. And maybe you call it version 2. And then later somebody else comes along and they edit it, but then they just call it updated. And then the next person comes along and they make changes and they save it as something called revised. And then somebody else opens it up and then they just save it back with the original name. Right? It just turns into this giant mess of what's the history here, which one was done when, and so on and so forth, because maybe somebody then goes back and edits the second one when they should have edited the fourth one. Whatever. What versioning does in SharePoint and in OneDrive is that it basically creates a file cluster or a file package, or however you want to do it, that keeps all of those old versions kind of hidden in the background, and they're still part of that file in a way, but they don't clutter things up. And we can still then go back if we need to and see, all right, what did this file look like a couple versions ago? And if we need to, we can restore and work and go back to those old versions. So we can open, restore, and delete these old versions. Now, I've got an example here. So let me go into my sample files. And I actually have a file here I called version history example. So let me select that file and let's view its version history and talk about what's going on. So I'm going to click that file. I'm going to go up to the three-dot menu here and I'm going to select version history. And now over on the right-hand side, basically in the same place as the details pane, is that now I've got this version history of the file. Those of you that are familiar with SharePoint, this should, and versioning in SharePoint, this should look this should look not like a surprise. What I'll say to you, that to those of you who are familiar with versioning in SharePoint, is that OneDrive only does major versioning. You can't do, by default, you can't do major minor versioning. In a way, it's possible, but you have to have certain rights to get into the settings of OneDrive and blah, blah, blah. And quite honestly, major versioning is just easy enough to deal with. So looking here, you'll see that basically I'm up to 4 versions of this file. Okay, and they have version numbers here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, there's not going to be a 2.1, 2.2, and so on and so forth, because we're only using major versioning. In SharePoint, we can get those minor versions because, again, SharePoint does major and minor. OneDrive only does major. Okay, so what are the different things that we can do here? Well, first off, I can just see, who did these different versions, when were they created, the time, the person, the size. Now you can see this has all been done by me, but anyways. So if I want to maybe look at an old version, what I can do is I can click on the three-dot menu, or I can click on the version number itself. But let me just go here and say open file. So I'm going to do that, and it's going to do open. And because I'm using a Chromium-based browser, it's actually going to launch the application. If I was in Internet Explorer, it would actually open up into Word Online. Either way, it doesn't matter. So this is going to open up in Word. And now I'm going to be able to at least look at what the file looked like in version 2. All right. And it even tells me in Word, it gives me a warning. This is a previous version. To make this previous version become the latest, click Restore. We'll talk about that in a moment. Basically, right now, this is an uneditable file because it's an old version. So if you look at the top here, it says read only. So I could mess around with this, but I'm not going to be able to save it. If I did try to save it or want to edit it, you'd have to do what's called a restore. I'll talk about that in a moment. And then you would actually end up creating a new version. So right now, I can look at this and see, okay, this was, that was what it looked like in that version, okay? So I only wrote that paragraph. Oh, my version's got, oh, I know what happened there. Okay, my numbering is off for a certain reason. Let's see what's technically is version 3, but I thought was version 2. I was one version behind. So let's click on the 3.0 there. Let's open that. So in the next version, the file looked like this. Now, what versioning is never going to do is it's not going to say, here's what's different. It's just going to show you what the file looks like, okay? I'll talk about that question in just a second. Just hold on. Somebody's like, doesn't restore overwrite it? I'm getting to that. So right now, here's what the file looked like. Version history is not going to say, well, this is what changed and this is what's new and so on and so forth. That is not a capability of OneDrive. Okay, so you're just going to have to, if you want to get into comparing, you can. There is a compare feature in Word, and this could be a whole other class, but we don't always have that in the other applications. Right? Word supports this really well, others don't. Okay. So for right now, that's just opening. That's just looking at these other versions, okay? So now and just for fun, I want you to see, let's look at the current version of the file. So what's labeled as 4.0, here's what it looks like. And I think I deleted some stuff just as an example. Yes, that's what I wanted to do. So here, okay, in version 3, I deleted a bullet. So this current version, stuff is missing. And so I'm looking at this and going, oh, crud, somebody deleted some stuff out of this that they shouldn't have deleted, and I need it back, or I need to be able to see if it was in a previous version. Okay, well, let's go looking for it. So in this case, that brings us to our next thing about restoring. So I go back one version, all right? Let's click here. Well, we already know what's going to happen, but let's go back one version and go and see what's here. There we go. Oh, okay, yeah, there's that missing information. For some reason in the new version, people deleted or they changed things that they shouldn't. All right, well, I want this file to now be the current version. I don't like what happened in version 4, so I want to use this one. So what I can do is that I'm going to restore this version. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with how versioning works, we'll see, that's okay. I'm going to click restore. And this file is now going to be the file. So let me just add some stuff down here at the bottom. This is now a new version. And here's the reveal, it's actually version 5. Let me save this and close it. All right. Which, by the way, you actually don't need to save when you're using things on OneDrive and SharePoint because it does auto-save in the background. But I can force that save right now. All right, let's close the file. Let's come back over to our version history. Now, it hasn't updated, but I just need to do a little refresh here. So let's just refresh our browser. And let me go back to that file. And let's view the version history. So I don't want to move it. Got too far ahead on my clicks. Let's go to version history. And let's see what happened. Oh, because I clicked save twice, now I got 2 of them. Okay, I got a little too happy with the button. My mouse here, I need a new mouse. It's double clicking when it's single. Anyways, when you restore a version, it becomes the new version. Okay, this is not a Microsoft thing. This is like an ISO, International Standards Organization. You can never go back to an old version and make changes to it. Why? Well, that just violates the whole principle. But what you can do when you restore a version is that it literally becomes the new version. So right now, version 3, and if I hadn't added that extra line, in a way, version 3 and version 6 right now are exactly the same. Now, that was a little bit of a lie, but you get what I mean here. Then if I do start to edit this, we go on from here, okay? In versioning, you can never, once there's a new version, you can never edit old versions. You can look at them and you can restore them to make them the new version, but you can never ever change them. That's just how versioning works. That would, if you could change these old versions, that would completely defeat the purpose. That's what we're trying to not have happen. And again, I think it's like some ISO standard. That's how that would work. Now, let's say you've started to accumulate a lot of these versions and you're like, well, okay, we don't need all these old ones, or maybe I just don't want somebody accidentally restoring an old version and causing further problems. So yes, I can delete a version. So let me come in here and let me get rid of this bogus version 5 that I didn't need. Let me delete that. And let me just for fun get rid of this one here. Let me get rid of 2. Now, take a look at the numbering. Did the numbering change, or is the numbering still the same? It's pretty obvious. The numbering didn't change. That's, again, to change the numbering would violate the rules. So if you look here, I've got 1, 3, 4, and 6. So you might be like, well, where is 2 and 5? Well, they're not here. Now, right now, they are in the recycle bin, and if I did need to get those back, I could. But again, this goes to the rules of ISO, standards, is that if you delete a version, if it just kind of fixed all the numbers, well, that could screw up all kinds of other documentation and things. So if you delete old versions, numbering doesn't change. The numbers are just going to continue to go up as they should. Okay. So if I deleted even all of these ones, this is still going to say version 6.0. It's going to be version 6 forever. Oh, well, of course, until I do a new version of the file, but that's just how versioning works. And this is the same way in SharePoint, okay? You can't, so basically, if you're new to versioning, here's a couple of rules. You can never edit an old version. You can always restore. Restoring a version basically makes it the new version. If you delete versions of files, they're just deleted, but that doesn't change any of the numbering. All the numbering stays the same. So that's how all that works. What this cuts down on is having all of these multiple copies and having, a file called updated and another one called revised and another one called version 3 and blah, blah, blah. It just does that. On my Windows computer, when I'm working on things, I still need to do that because Windows doesn't do version history, okay? But on other things in OneDrive and SharePoint, I don't have to worry, right? If I edit something and save it, all right, version history is on, and I don't have to worry about maybe going back and seeing what it looked like before. So this is a very cool feature in that respect. Again, so many cool things here in OneDrive, but there we go with the version history. So any other questions about version history before we move on to the next thing? We only support major versioning in OneDrive. SharePoint can do both major and minor. You can open and look at old versions. You can restore those old versions. You can delete them, okay? And versions get created basically, it gets more complicated, but basically it's not every time you save, but rather it's every time you work on the document and then close it. Now, that is a very general rule. It gets more complicated when we've got multiple authors and collaborators, and there's all kinds of other things that go into that. But the basic rule is new versions are only created when you exit out of the application. There's tons of exceptions. And again, once we get collaborators and stuff in there, it does work differently. If I've got multiple people in a file, it does save versions more frequently for a variety of reasons, okay? All right. Let's move on. Our last couple of topics here are a lot shorter, so we'll get through it. So speaking of the recycle bin, well, let's talk about that. Let's go to our recycle bin. So let me click on recycle bin here. And yeah, basically anytime I delete stuff or get rid of a version, all of that stuff is going to be here in the recycle bin. So you can see right here that there is versions 2 and 5 of that file. I could restore those from here and put them back in the version history if I felt the need to, but they are listed here. So you could, I could do that if I needed to. Now, I'm the only one, at least in OneDrive, I'm the only one that can delete versions because it's my file. So you don't have to worry about other people getting to the version history and doing this. This is more of a SharePoint. That's more of a SharePoint thing about restoring all that sort of, or worrying about that. Here in OneDrive, we don't have to worry about it. It's you. So if you deleted the version, it's your problem. But like any recycle bin that you've got in Windows, when you delete something in the website, it's going to show up here. You can restore it if you need to, whether it's a file or a folder. You can select something and restore it. You can restore multiple files. You could delete it again from here, and that would totally get rid of it. You can also empty the recycle bin if you need to, if you want to empty, really want to empty it out. The recycle bin in OneDrive will keep things there for the default is 93 days. Okay, that basically amounts to that's 31 times 3. It's just, they're just kind of assuming 31-day months, which is strange, but that's how it is, okay? There is also something called the second stage recycle bin, okay? And that is, if you look in the recycle bin, it's usually at the bottom. Let me scroll all the way down. There it is. Oop, I got to scroll all the way down to the bottom. There's a lot of stuff here. And it says right down, oh, it keeps disappearing because there's so much stuff. And I'm also in Chrome. There, it keeps disappearing on me. Stop that. Okay, well, anyways, come on. Let me get all the way to the end of the list. Am I all the way there or not? Look at all this stuff I deleted. All right, there is down there. All right, I'm tired of trying to scroll because I deleted a ton of stuff. Down there at the bottom, there's going to be a little banner that says, can't find what you're looking for? Try the second stage recycle bin. If I delete stuff, or if I delete it from the recycle bin, or I empty the recycle bin, files actually go to something called the second stage recycle bin, and you can actually go there and restore stuff. The thing is, though, is the 93-day rule still applies, and that applies to both together. Okay, so that's 93 days total in both the recycle bin and the second stage. So if I delete this stuff from here, okay, this was, so I've got some stuff here that was deleted a month ago. So we're already 30 days into it. If I delete these files from here, they've only got 62 days, 62 or 63 days left in the second stage, okay? Overall, the rule is 93. Your company may have other things that they've done differently on the back end for whatever file retention, especially in government, we've got record keeping and all that other sort of stuff. So there may be different things along those lines. At the default, it's 93 days total. So if 93 days have passed and you go looking for something, you ain't gonna find it. And it's not gonna be in the recycle bin, and it's not gonna be in the second stage recycle bin. So just be aware of that. You've only got so much time, all right? After 3 months, hopefully you don't need it anymore, which is why I'm like, if you need something, don't delete it, okay? So there is our recycle bin, our restoring, our emptying, and our using the second stage. All right, for our last topic for this session, we want to talk about notification settings in OneDrive. So let me go back to my files here. There are a few things that you can set. Now, again, especially in corporate environments, you're not going to have access to all of the policy settings and other things about OneDrive. You're there again, who can you share with? The different policies, all that sort of stuff. There are things that the administrators can set up on their end. You do have control over a few things, and it's mostly notifications. So to find those, you can go to the settings, okay? The gear symbol is always our settings. And you'll see here there is a OneDrive settings. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And the first thing you're put into is the notifications. Now, this is similar to coming all the way back to the Windows client. On the Windows client, right, when we went into settings here, there was in the settings section, there was also some notifications that we can get on the Windows side. We've got the same thing for the most part here. It's just that with the web, they've got to do it via email. So you can get reminders for sharing emails. So if somebody shares a file with you and Office detects that you didn't open the email or you haven't clicked on the link yet, you can get a reminder about that. If you do a mass deletion, you can get a notification about that. Yeah, but then again, since it's your OneDrive, but if you just want to be reminded, hey, you deleted a lot of stuff. When people reply to your comments, so if commenting is happening in a file, you can get that. When the link in a sharing email you sent was clicked, so if you want to know when people actually access the file, you can get a notification that, hey, Russell actually opened the file. And when others upload files to your file request. That's another thing that you can do what are called file requests, topic for another time, but you can also get notifications for those. There is a more settings here, but you may not have access to this, again, depending on your company policies. I can get to this because it's my tenant, it's my thing, so I can get to all of this stuff here. And there's more stuff here about access requests and sharing reports and storage metrics, but you might not be, this might be turned off where you're at. So I don't have all the time. This is really, now we're getting into the advanced stuff, which if I ever do an advanced class, maybe we'll get into more of these things. But this is stuff that we'll worry about for yet another time. To get back out of here, unfortunately, kind of once you get in here, it's a little screwy. You can't get out, so I'm just going to use the back. I'm just going to keep hitting the back button. Might be because I'm in a Chrome-based browser instead of Internet Explorer that the link is not there. Okay. All right, so under notification settings, not a whole lot there, but there are some things that you can set. All right, wow, we actually got through all of it. I was a little worried there for a while. I was kind of glancing at my notes and glancing at the time like, I don't know if I'm gonna get to everything, but it looks like I got to almost all the stuff that I wanted. Hey, there is actually still more that we can talk about with OneDrive, and those will be for later classes, especially how OneDrive works with SharePoint. We can look for that one in the future. But in the meantime, if you do need additional training and learning on OneDrive, there's a couple of places I'd highly suggest you take a look at. First off, always Microsoft's support site at support.office.com. That is support for all of their end user products. So not just OneDrive, but Teams and SharePoint and Word and Excel and Planner and Forms and all that stuff. You can go there and find lots of help about that. The only caution I want to give you, especially with OneDrive, is remember it does come in those two flavors. We've got OneDrive for Business and we've got the OneDrive Personal. There are things that are different between them. So as you're looking at the articles, make sure you're looking at ones for OneDrive for Business and not just regular OneDrive. If you happen to be a bit more technical curious and you maybe want to learn more about those settings I was talking about, especially on the administrator side, and what are the things that maybe your company can do, you're welcome to go to docs.microsoft.com, click on OneDrive, and you'll find every technical piece of documentation you could shake a stick at when it comes to OneDrive. You can look at that. On a more personal basis, hey, here's the me stuff. Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, you've already found my YouTube channel. For those of you attending online right now, I think most of you know about the YouTube channel, but in case you don't, you can always check my channel for new videos. I try to post them shortly after training sessions are done. So there you go. You can also join my Facebook group, which is where you can find out about more of these live trainings. Recordings are nice, but man, I don't know about you, but I love live trainings because just like the people that are on right now, that you can ask questions in real time. You can ask me to clarify things, all that sort of fun stuff. With a recording, you can't do that. So I encourage you to come to these live events. They're free. Invite your friends, invite your coworkers, whatever. You can, but basically where you find that information, well, you got to go to Facebook and find the Beardy MCT. That's my moniker for right now because I'm Beardy, and yeah, you get it. Go ahead, head over to Facebook, search for that group, join it. It's a public group. Anybody can join it. And when you're in that group, you'll get the invites and updates about all the training sessions like this that I've been doing. Well, I want to thank you all for attending. I want to thank you for watching. Again, those of you who are on the call, hold on. We'll open it up to the full Q&A where you can unmute yourself and ask questions. For those of you online, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you at a future session.